Recently, I went through something no homeowner should ever have to say out loud. My farm got raided by cops. Over an HOA complaint. They showed up certain they were in charge. Turned out the only thing they really had was front row seats to their own arrests. Let me back up. And before we dive in, tell me where you're listening from today. I want to know how far this kind of insanity reaches. Started with a nail. 6 inches of rusted steel driven straight through a bright red notice and into the wood of my front gate. Like the paperwork police had fired a warning shot. Emergency repossession notice, HOA mandate 14D violation, which was fascinating. Considering I don't have an HOA. At least I didn't used to. I tore the paper off the gate. It came with 3 little gifts. A list of made-up violations. Livestock containment breach. Unauthorized fencing design. The works. A $4,700 fine. A deadline. Vacate by Friday or face immediate removal. Best of all, it was signed. Karen Whitaker, President, Greater Simmons Valley HOA. I don't live in Simmons Valley. I live next to Simmons Valley. But apparently Karen had decided HOA borders were now expandable, imperialism with more beige clipboards. At first I assumed it was junk. One of those scarlet letter scams. Then, 30 minutes later, a matte black SUV rolled up my driveway. 2 guys stepped out. Cargo pants. Tactical vests. One with a clipboard, one with a sidearm and the kind of buzz cut that screams I almost passed the police academy. Clipboard guy took point. Sir, we're here to conduct a visual inspection on behalf of the Simmons Valley HOA. I gave him the world's longest blink. You have a warrant? Under municipal subcode, emergency protocol authorizes perimeter verification without resident consent. A lot of syllables for no. I blocked his path. You're not going anywhere near my barn with that attitude. Or that vest. The second guy shifted his stance. One hand drifted close to his holster. Just close enough to threaten without drawing. I stared him down. Unless you're law enforcement or holding a legally binding warrant, you're trespassing. Clipboard guy smiled and pulled out his phone. We'll be noting your resistance. This will escalate. Oh, I hope so, I said. I love paperwork. As they turned back to their SUV, I noticed something taped inside the windshield. An HOA badge. Printed. Laminated. Crooked. I took out my phone. Snapped their plates, their fake badge, their gear, everything. Then I posted it to the local Simmons community board. New HOA cosplay unit spotted. Looks like Blackwater took over lawn care. Within minutes, comments exploded. Same guys knocked on my barn door last week. One neighbor wrote. Said they needed to check the grain bins for health violations. Another, this isn't compliance. This is intimidation. Then old man Duffy from 4 houses down chimed in. Told y'all years ago, Karen's HOA ain't a neighborhood group. It's a damn cult. I was still laughing at that when my phone rang. The caller ID, Karen. I picked up. Hello. Her voice came through smug, clipped, dripping with Stepford confidence. Mr. Callahan. I'm calling to confirm you received the formal notice. You mean the one illegally nailed to my gate? Nailed is a harsh term. Secured for visibility. And it's not illegal under the new emergency expansion guidelines. Which guidelines? The ones we voted on last quarter. Funny. I don't recall being invited to that meeting. It was for residents of Simmons Valley. I'm not in Simmons Valley. You are now. Click. That night I noticed something else. Orange survey flags lined the edge of my north field. Brand new. I hadn't put them there, and judging by the way my goats were happily chewing on 2 of them, I doubted they were HOA approved. I yanked one from the ground. Plastic tag. Numbered coordinates scrawled in black Sharpie. They weren't bluffing. They were mapping. The next morning I drove into town to file a formal report. Attempted impersonation of law enforcement. The woman at the county office raised an eyebrow as she read it. We've had a few of these. How many is a few? 11. You're 12. Anything done about the first 11? She shook her head. Most people just pay the fine and hope they go away. I'm not most people. No, she said. giving me a once-over. You're not. Then she scribbled on a sticky note and slid it across. You should talk to this guy. Sheriff Luke Callahan. My brother. I called him that night. Read him the letter. Told him about the fake cops and their high school AV club clipboard. He went quiet. Then, you're not the first. I figured. But your case is different. This isn't just about fines or fences. What's it about, then? Control. And what they're planning next. I waited. Which is? I can't talk over the phone. Just hold the line. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just some Facebook-happy HOA board overreaching. This was bigger, coordinated, planned, and my land was step one. What Luke didn't say that night was that Karen had already tried this move before. Different landowner, same script. 2 weeks after his eviction, his property was donated to the HOA for community use. Now it's a private retreat, and Karen owns it. The next round didn't start with sirens. It started with a megaphone. This is the compliance division of the Simmons Valley HOA. Step outside immediately. That's what I heard at 6:42 a.m. while pouring coffee and watching my goats headbutt each other over an empty feed bucket. I thought I was dreaming until I saw the flash of amber lights on my front gate. Too dramatic for people who'd never made eye contact with an actual badge. I stepped onto the porch in a t-shirt that said, "Fence me in. I dare you," for black trucks idled at the end of my gravel road. No plates, just stenciled numbers. Across each side, duct-taped banners. Civic Enforcement Simmons Valley Compliance Division. 6 people climbed out. Full khaki getup. Steel-toe boots. Radios on their belts. One held a drone remote. Another gripped a laminated folder like it was a shield. And then, like a soap opera villain hitting her cue, Karen stepped out of the lead truck. Clipboard, sunglasses, windbreaker that probably cost more than my tractor. "Good morning," she said, smiling like this was a wellness check instead of a fake raid. "We're here to initiate Phase 2 of your compliance review." I sipped my coffee. Did Phase 1 get lost in the mail? You received proper notice. You chose not to respond. We are now authorized to inspect and seize any structure or material in breach of code. Which code? Simmons Valley's Extended Covenant, Article C. There's no such thing. It was ratified at the last board meeting. There is no board. There is now. She turned and nodded. Her group moved like dollar store special forces. 2 headed for the barn. 1 raised a drone. Another started pacing the fence line like he was on recon. I stepped off the porch, one hand in my hoodie pocket, calm and deliberate. They froze like someone had hit pause. "Sir," one of them said, "please don't interfere." "Why?" "Planning to arrest me for walking on my own land. We're here under community authority." "No. You're here playing dress-up in khakis." Karen's smile didn't slip, but she stepped closer. "We can do this peacefully, or escalate. Your choice." "You brought 6 rent-a-troopers and a drone to inspect a barn," I said. "It's not just the barn. It's the unauthorized fencing, the livestock zone violations, and the unregistered utility hookup." "Funny," I said. "The barn's been here 30 years. Goats were born on site. Utilities are county-issued. Want to see the paperwork? We'll determine that ourselves." "No, you won't." She waved 2 of them forward. They got about 6 steps before I whistled. My goats, chaos-loving gremlins that they are, bleated in unison and thundered toward the barn. One of the guys flinched. "What the hell?" "They don't like strangers," I said. "Especially ones with radios." Karen lifted her phone and started recording. Just another example of escalating hostility from non-compliant residents. "We're documenting all of this." I smiled into the camera. "Smile harder, Karen. That footage is going to look real good subpoenaed." Before she could answer, another car turned up the drive. A marked sheriff's cruiser. Deputy Ramirez stepped out. Calm, solid, unmistakably legit. "Everything all right here?" he asked. Karen turned. "We're in the middle of an HOA enforcement operation. Please stand down." He cocked an eyebrow. "You're what?" These residents are in violation of multiple codes. We're executing a legal inspection. He looked at me. Did you invite these folks? Nope. Do you consent to this inspection? Absolutely not. Then they're trespassing. He turned back to Karen. Ma'am, you and your unit need to vacate immediately. And that drone? It's illegal to fly over private agricultural property without clearance. Karen's eye twitched. This is outrageous. This, Ramirez said, is the law. She clenched her jaw and leaned in close enough that only I could hear. I hope your niece enjoys applying for scholarships from an off-grid property with multiple violations. My blood went cold. I didn't show it. But in that moment, I wanted her gone. All the way gone. They pulled back in formation. As the last truck rolled away, one of the younger guys hesitated. Looked at the barn, then at me. His expression cracked for half a second. Regret. Or doubt. I'll never know. Karen barked something at him and he turned away. There's always one, I muttered. The recruit with a conscience. I waited 5 minutes, then walked to the barn. Ran my hand along the old siding. My dad built this with his own hands, reclaimed pine, screws from the mill's scrap heap. Called it the Freedom Box. Said it'd outlast any rulebook. Now it had a drone lens pointed at it. That night Luke showed up at the back fence. No uniform, no warning, just a nod and a six-pack. We sat on the porch swing like we were kids again. That was textbook Karen, he said. Full spectacle. All smoke. Then why does it feel like it's working? He cracked a beer. Because you're not just a target. You're a headline. If she takes you down, everyone else folds. She threatened my niece. Then she's scared. How many others? I asked. 3 counties. Maybe 4. People signing over land to avoid lawsuits they can't afford. All buried in legalese and HOA policies nobody voted on. She's not smart enough to build this. She didn't, he said. But she's ruthless enough to run it. He stood. I'll be in position. But I can't step in unless she crosses a line. She already has. Then get proof. Clean and solid. And keep your head straight. I'm wired up 6 different ways, I said. Good. Because what's coming next isn't a clipboard and a fine. What I didn't see was that the next knock was already inside my gate. Someone I trusted was feeding her everything. And her next move nearly burned this place to the ground. At first it was little things. Tools moved. A gate I knew I'd latch standing open. Fence wire loose where it should have been tight. Maggie, the goat with 0 survival instinct, wandered into the road chewing a survey flag like it owed her money. I brushed it off. Farms are messy. Goats are, at best, chaotic neutral. Then the power cut out twice. Clear skies. No outages reported anywhere. Each blackout happened at the exact moment the barn cameras were uploading footage to cloud storage. That got my attention. Final straw. The pasture fence shorted on a clear night right after I'd repaired it. The copper line had a clean slice. No bite marks. No rust. Just severed. Someone wasn't breaking in. They were already here. I checked logs. Reviewed motion alerts. Every glitch lined up with one person's shift. Darren. Tall. Soft-spoken. New hire. Recommended by a neighboring property. Always on time, steady worker. Never said much. Lately, though, his questions were pointed. Not about livestock. About systems. Where's the backup generator? You got a backup to the backup? You ever think about solar redundancy? Helpful on the surface until I noticed him walking around with his phone at chest height, screen lit, camera open and angled up toward the barn loft window. Right where I keep the safe. So I tested him. I staged a decoy shed and left a binder on the workbench titled Property Transfer Options. Confidential, just blank paper inside. I left it, forgotten. Unlocked. 3 days later it was gone. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I waited. At 11:17 p.m. on a Thursday, the well cam pinged motion. I pulled up the feed. There he was. Hood up. Flashlight in one hand. Black messenger bag slung over his shoulder. Creeping across my property like it owed him rent. I grabbed one thing I knew I'd need and stepped into the cold. Caught him by the pump house. Forget to clock out? He spun, dropped the flashlight and the bag, and bolted. I ran. We tore through the side pasture, past the south gate, fresh hoof prints still wet in the mud. He was fast, but he didn't know the land like I did. Halfway to the woods, he tripped on an irrigation pipe and face-planted. I was on him before he could get up. Let's talk. It's not what it looks like. Then say something smart in the next 10 seconds. He didn't beg. He snapped. You think you're some kind of hero? He spat. Sitting on stolen land, barking orders like you're better than everyone else? Karen told me what this place really is. Told me your family rigged the original land deal. That this was always supposed to go back to the community. You mean Karen, the HOA president, told you my dad was a land thief? She showed me the documents. She also tell you to cut my fence? She said you wouldn't listen, that you were a risk. He tried to stand. I shoved him back down. So you were what? Doing the community a favor. They were going to take it anyway. I just made it faster. He opened the bag. Inside, a burner phone, a tablet, a hand-sketched map of my property covered in red ink notes. Trigger point, fence cam blind spot, well access unguarded. At the bottom, one phrase underlined twice. Evacuation trigger, November 4th. I checked the date. 2 days away. I powered on the tablet. It auto-launched into a folder titled Phase 3 Callahan inside. Surveillance photos. Power usage charts. Camera stills from angles I'd never installed. And a PDF labeled Priority Report. Subject NO and compliant. Acceleration recommended Luke, and I read it together later that night. It was full of phrases like narrative control slipping. Subject demonstrating resistance to de-escalation attempts. Consider legal civil order filing under expanded HOA clause. At the bottom, authorization, K. Whitaker. No more guessing. Karen wasn't reacting. She was running the entire operation. Then came the documents. Forged property transfer forms. A quitclaim deed. My name on a signature line I'd never seen. Filed with the county, stamped and processed, listing co-ownership with a new entity. Mason Ridge Holdings. I climbed to the loft, opened the safe, and pulled out the real land deed. Thick, yellowed paper with my father's signature. Side by side with the forgery, they were almost identical: layout, ink, file number. Except mine had a wet signature. The forgery was clearly scanned, lifted, and pasted. Filed weeks ago. She's trying to sell the place out from under you, Luke said. To a shell developer she's tied to. And the county signed off? At least one official did. Probably more. This is fraud. This is theft. Later that night I sat in the barn, on the same bench where my dad used to read the paper. Tin mug of black coffee in my hands, handle bent from years of use. I pulled out the old folder he'd left when he died. Receipts, surveys, maps, and one more record. A rejected offer. Buyer? Karen Whitaker. She tried to buy our land 3 decades ago. Got denied. And now she was using forged paperwork and crooked county officials to finish what she started. She's been coming for this place since before I could drive, I said. Luke nodded. And now she's got signatures. Not for long, because that forged deed wasn't the end. It was the trigger. The contract Karen filed didn't just transfer interest. It granted construction rights. And what she wanted to build wouldn't just wipe out my farm. It would erase any trace I'd ever been here. I used to think my dad was a little nuts. Not in a bad way, just prepper adjacent. He stacked firewood like he expected a second ice age. Buried 6 sets of spare keys in marked coffee cans around the property. Security through confusion, he'd say. If they don't know where the line is, they can't cross it. Turns out he wasn't paranoid. He was right. The day after we uncovered the forged deed, I pried up the old floorboards at the back of the barn and pulled out a steel lockbox labeled in faded red Sharpie. Mule dust. To anyone else, nonsense. To us, code, a joke from when I was 9 and asked him what eminent domain meant. It means the government thinks your land is worth more to them than to you, he'd said. So they call it progress and you call it theft. Inside the box. Receipts, topo maps, permits, carbons of letters going back to the 80s, and one fat spiral notebook titled Land Disputes, Settled and Unsettled. He'd logged every challenge, every complaint, every attempt to rezone Simmons Valley. One name showed up over and over in red ink. Karen Whitaker. I flipped to a section marked February 1991. A clean-typed proposal for a luxury subdivision. Tennis courts, gates, clubhouse, fitness studio. Filed by Karen back when she was just a junior agent at a development firm. Stamped denied in block letters. Zoning conflict. Environmental overlap. Structural impact too high. In my dad's handwriting, her name was circled. She'll try again. Not with a company, with paper. And suddenly, it all snapped into focus. This wasn't just about power. It was personal. A memory surfaced. Something I didn't know I still had. Karen at our front gate. I was 9, sitting on the porch with my legs swinging. She wore a blazer, hair up, clipboard in hand like she already owned the county. My dad met her halfway down the drive. "Mr. Callahan," she'd said. "I think we got off on the wrong foot." "You don't get a second foot if you use the first one to kick down the door," he replied. She smiled, unfazed. "This property could be worth triple what it is now. You'd be doing the community a service." "The answer's still no," he said. She didn't yell, didn't argue, just nodded and walked off. But her face, that wasn't someone who'd lost. That was someone willing to wait 30 years to win. Back in the barn, Luke and I spread every document across the floor next to the forged deed Darren had lifted. We found zoning overlays that had been altered. Easement rights stamped, abandoned. County office stamps that didn't match the real ones. The jackpot was a development contract between Mason Ridge Holdings and a silent fund called Emergent Valley Growth Trust. My farm was labeled Phase 1, Redevelopment Opportunity Zone, signed by Karen. Co-signed by Zachary Lauren, county zoning chief. The same man who'd told me over coffee 2 weeks earlier, "I hope you never sell this place. There's something sacred about land with history." Now he's trying to erase it, Luke muttered, pulling out his phone. "This isn't just fraud anymore. Then what is it? Strategic acquisition built on intimidation and forgery. How far does it go? Far enough to keep me up at night." Later I dug out my dad's old cassette player. One tape was labeled Town Hall, February 1991. The audio was scratchy, but clear enough. "This proposal benefits everyone," Karen's voice said. "We need housing, infrastructure, progress." "You mean concrete," my dad replied. "And control. You're holding back the future. I'm protecting the present. You're making this personal. Only because you made it first." Silence. Then a single awkward clap. The tape ended. Luke came back with a manila folder. Inside, leaked HOA minutes, not from this year. From last year. That's how long this had been in motion. One section read, "Monitor subjects' movements. Begin mail reroute strategy. Secure barn as future equipment site. Spin narrative mental instability if resistance escalates." Beneath that, in bolder text, contingency plan, civil enforcement fake LAW enforcement badge protocol. She had a plan for everything. And still she panicked. Because the minute I printed every file, mailed copies to 3 local papers, and dropped another stack on her porch with a note that said, "Still not yours," she cracked. Posted a video online. Standing in front of her HOA banner, hair perfect, voice shaking. "Certain individuals have spread false claims about me in this community. I have never engaged in unlawful activity. This is harassment, misinformation. I demand it stop." The comments weren't kind. "Blink twice if you're lying. Lady, nobody believes you didn't forge something. You look forged. Let me guess. HOA stands for Harass Our Agriculture." The video disappeared in 3 hours. I archived it. Back in the barn, tucked in the back of the notebook, I found one more note from my dad, circled in red. They can only take it if they can prove you were never supposed to have it. Below that, a map with a parcel line Karen had crossed. The strip belonged to my neighbor, Don Wallace. Not just any neighbor, a lawyer. And he'd been waiting for Karen to screw up, which meant the next time she stepped past that boundary, she wouldn't just be trespassing. She'd be triggering a legal takedown she'd never see coming. It rolled in like a storm before sunrise. Not loud, not sudden. Just that pressure shift that makes the dogs restless and the wind change direction for no good reason. This time, I didn't flinch. The barn was wired. Every inch of the perimeter under surveillance, feeding an encrypted offsite server with backups stacked on backups. Luke had off-duty deputies 2 fields over, binoculars out, watching a live feed on a tablet. And I had something else ready in the barn. A little surprise I called Plan B, East Mode. At 9:04 a.m., they came. 5 black SUVs. Dust-coated, moving fast. They didn't arrive polite. They invaded, skidding into my drive like they were breaching a compound. Karen climbed out first. Beige blazer, dark sunglasses, wearing the look of someone who still thought she had leverage. She had 8 fake compliance officers behind her. Earpieces, zip ties, clipboards gripped like weapons. "Mr. Callahan," she called, loud enough for the whole valley. "You've left us no choice." She held up a document like a royal decree. "Under emergency HOA directive, this property is hereby placed under administrative hold pending full inspection." "Looks impressive," I said. "But unless a judge signed it, it's decorative garbage." "You're in violation." "No," I said. "You're in denial." She nodded to her crew. 2 headed for the south gate. 1 walked toward the barn, crowbar in hand. Another sported a body cam like this was a training video in how to get sued into the Stone Age. "Everything you're doing," I said, "is being recorded." They hesitated. 5 cameras. 2 deputies watching live. County lawyer reviewing the feed. "So by all means, keep going." Karen's jaw flexed. She tried to hold her composure. "We have jurisdiction," she said. "No, you have delusions. We're acting on behalf of the community." "Which part?" I asked. "The part suing you, or the part filming this disaster?" She gave the order. "Proceed." One of her people, a tall kid in his 20s who probably thought easement was a yoga pose, stepped up to the barn and put his hand on the door. "Bad move. Plan B triggered." Motion sensors lit. Spotlights snapped on. Sirens wailed. Then a deep voice boomed from speakers around the property. "This is Sheriff Callahan. You are now trespassing on private property under investigation. Step away from the building immediately." Karen flinched. 2 of her crew stumbled back. The crowbar hit the dirt. 1 turned to her, whispering something I couldn't catch. Another muttered into his radio. She said we had clearance. She said we were covered. Karen ignored them. Mistake 1. Mistake 2. Not looking behind her. From the rear pasture, Don Wallace walked forward. Wide-brimmed hat, clean boots, thick file in hand. Karen didn't notice him until he was 5 feet away. "Ms. Whitaker," he said, "you've crossed onto my land. This is part of the Simmons Valley zoning tract." She shot back. "That tract stops 23 feet west," he said. "This is private land. And this," he held up the file, "is a cease and desist order, effective now." She laughed once. "This is a community enforcement action." "That's funny," Don cut in, "because the community just filed a class action lawsuit against your organization for fraud, harassment, and illegal property seizure." He leaned in. "And the judge who overturned your hold? She lives 2 blocks from me." Karen's face didn't fall all at once. Cracked in pieces, eyes, then mouth, then silence. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "I already did," I said, stepping up beside Dawn. "Back in 1991, when we offered you lemonade. That's when the real law arrived. For county cruisers, sirens dark. Doors opened in unison. Luke climbed out of the lead car like he'd been waiting for this moment his whole life. "Everyone, hands visible," he called. "Let's keep this clean." Karen didn't move, so he held up a document. Signed warrant, he said. Fraud. Forgery. Unlawful impersonation of law enforcement. Multiple civil code violations. You can't arrest me, she said. That's adorable, Luke replied. But yes, I can. They cuffed her. No drama. No screaming. Just a heavy, hollow finality. Her crew folded like lawn chairs in a hurricane. One tried to run, made it 10 feet. Another sat on the gravel and asked, "Can I still qualify as a whistleblower?" "If you talk fast," Luke said. Neighbors poured in quick. People who'd been too scared to speak now clapped openly. Someone filmed from a drone. Another dad brought his teenage daughter, who shouted, "That's the lady who tried to fine us for putting up Halloween lights." Karen didn't meet their eyes, but they stared at her like a neighborhood monster finally dragged into daylight. Mrs. Delaney rolled up in her golf cart, parked at the gate, and raised a glass of sweet tea like it was champagne. "Told you," she said. Woman's HOA Hitler with a hyphenated last name. Even with Karen in cuffs, something itched at the back of my mind. While Luke loaded evidence bags, one of his deputies called over. "Hey, you need to see this." A tablet from Karen's SUV. One email. No sender. No body. No name. Just a subject line. Reassignment, pilot zone, Midwest beta and coordinates. Not mine. Somewhere else. Karen was going down for everything she'd done here. But she wasn't the architect. She was just the pilot program. And whoever owned that land at those coordinates. They hadn't fought back yet. They took Karen away just after noon. No sunglasses. No clipboard. No fake vest. Just handcuffs and the look of someone who'd finally realized the script was over. She didn't cry, but her silence was louder than any meltdown. Her mugshot hit the local paper by sunset. Channel 9 ran the footage twice. By morning, it had 80,000 shares online under headlines like, "HOA President Cuffed for Fake Raid. Get Served by Real Sheriff." Her victim's brother, my face was blurred. Hers wasn't. The HOA website vanished overnight. The board of directors page now reads 404. Someone in town, I still don't know who, started printing bumper stickers. Karen Isn't Law. A high school kid made shirts with her mugshot and the caption, "Violation. Arrogance Section 8. Paragraph Stupid." Her empire collapsed from the inside. 6 of her officers flipped. 3 county employees were suspended for rubber stamping fake permits. Zachary Lauren resigned to focus on family. Luke said the state DA is investigating. Quietly, thoroughly. But that's not what kept me up. It was that email. Reassignment, pilot zone, Midwest beta. No sender. No body. Just coordinates. 2 counties over, those coordinates led me to Grace Harlow. She owned a small, newer ranch. Clean lines, orderly pastures. She met me at the gate with a rake in one hand and zero time for nonsense. "If you're here about code enforcement..." "Not exactly," I said. "I'm here about Karen." I showed her a copy of my forged deed. She went pale, vanished into her shed, came back with a manila envelope. Inside, a letter on HOA letterhead. Same structure as mine. Same Phase 1 redevelopment opportunity zone language. But the signature at the bottom wasn't Karen's. It was from an HOA representative for her community, and the beneficiary named in the fine print? Mason Ridge Holdings. She was next. Maybe already targeted. Maybe already under surveillance. We traded everything: files, footage, testimony. Within 2 weeks, Grace filed an injunction with help from the state attorney's office. 3 weeks later, the HOA over her subdivision went strangely quiet. She sent me a sunrise photo of her land with a note. Still standing. Still mine. Then came the others. For more landowners. 3 states. Different names. Different HOAs. Same threats. Same development group. Same blueprint. This wasn't Karen's idea. It was a playbook. And Karen had just been running Chapter 1. I handed everything to a contact in the state AG's office. They made no promises. Asked for my silence. But the message was clear. We're not just investigating this HOA. We're looking at the network behind them. My ranch stayed mine. Luke helped reinforce the boundaries. I rebuilt the barn door, sanded the porch steps, upgraded the cameras. The goats went back to being the most dangerous things on the property. But I didn't go back to who I was before. I walk the fence line every morning now. Not just to check the wire, but to remind myself that power doesn't always come in uniforms. Sometimes it comes with clipboards, smiles, and forged signatures. And if you're not paying attention, it erases you quietly, legally. Some neighbors wave more now. Some still avoid eye contact. Mrs. Delaney dropped off pickles and a note. Next time, run for mayor. Or sheriff. Or God. I didn't run. I built. I prepared. And I paid attention. A month after Karen's arrest, a black envelope appeared on my gate. No return address. No note. Just a wax seal. Inside, a single card. One symbol. A triangle overlaid with a stylized house. Below it, another set of coordinates. I held it for hours. Considered burning it. Considered driving straight there. Instead, I logged the data and locked it away in the same box where my dad kept mule dust. Because someday someone else might need it. And when they do, they won't be starting from scratch. I used to think the law was a wall. Thick, permanent. It's not. It's paper. And paper only holds until someone decides to light a match. If you think Karen was the end of the story, you haven't seen the rest of the map. Because that email, it wasn't a glitch. It was a starting point. And somewhere out there, someone just circled the next zone.